We keep seeing crashes that kill pedestrians and cyclists on our streets. Advice tonight from Coloradans who know the danger better than most.
I usually don't go out throughout the week without having a close call.
The town that hands out traffic tickets like Halloween candy is losing its police chief, and the future of the whole police force is in question. Denver voters rely on the city's mailed-out voter guide, so heads up, stuff in there doesn't have to be the truth. The economic impact of the pandemic on Latinos in Colorado, it's been devastating. New numbers prove it. And my thoughts on a prominent radio host telling Colorado Republicans to go catch COVID when the state GOP needs every alive voter it can find. Next. Traffic in Denver could soon see a slowdown on hundreds of streets at once. The people asking for this hope that drivers will forgive the inconvenience that might allow more of our neighbors to not die. Here's Mark Salinger.
Because right now, I have no idea if somebody's going to come around that corner.
Jamie Lewis knows the dangers of traveling down the street in his wheelchair. He faces them every day.
I usually don't go out throughout the week without having a close call.
That orange sweatshirt is more than fashion. He wears bright clothes so people will see him as he thinks about all the recent pedestrian deaths and close calls while he waits to cross the street.
It heightens my safety conscience. When I get to an intersection, I make sure I get eye contact with the drivers because I never know what they're going to do.
Jamie works with the Colorado Cross Disability Coalition, fighting for safer streets. The uptick in pedestrian deaths and hit-and-run crashes weighs heavy on him.
People usually don't pay attention until it happens to a family member or somebody close to them, and then all of a sudden it becomes relevant.
Now he hopes a small change he's fought for could soon make a big impact in Denver.
We are calling on the city to reduce the default speed limit from 25 miles per hour to 20 miles per hour.
Denver City Council is expected to soon vote on an ordinance that would lower the default speed limit on all streets in the city. That would impact all the smaller neighborhood streets where there's no speed limit sign posted and the default speed limit is 25.
City Council could change it very quickly through a simple legislation.
Jill Locantore with the Denver Streets Partnership has been fighting to lower the speed limit for years. As pedestrian deaths trend upward after the pandemic, she says change may finally be coming.
Speed is one of the biggest factors that contributes to whether a crash happens in the first place and the severity of the crash.
A 5-mile-an-hour difference that they say could save lives.
If a car and a pedestrian is in an accident, the car is always going to win.
I spoke with Denver City Councilman Paul Cashman. He says he plans to introduce the ordinance in the next couple of weeks. Advocates for the change say lowering that speed limit by even just 5 miles an hour greatly increases pedestrians' chances for survival, Kyle, if they get hit by a car that 20 mile an hour compared to 25, or if they're going a little bit faster, 30, that makes a big impact.
Cashman thinks he's got the votes to pass it.
He does.
Yeah. And now, again, this is side streets, all those unmarked residential streets. This is not Federal or Colfax or Sheridan.
Every street has a speed limit, regardless of if you see a speed limit sign posted there. So you'll see that drop go down on those side streets, and they'll put up new signs that say 20 mile an hour. But you won't see that on like Broadway, Colfax. That isn't affected by this.
Thinking about neighbors having to wear hunter orange just to get around safely on the streets is pretty wild. Thank you, Mark. Morrison's police chief is quitting 3 months after taking the job in that town best known for raining tickets on drivers along 285. Chief Misty Sitterfin took over that department as it was hemorrhaging officers. 10 had left in 7 months before she arrived. Morrison PD was so short-staffed, the town turned things over to the Jeffco Sheriff's Office. Morrison's been paying the county $24,000 a month to handle patrol, traffic enforcement, and criminal investigations. Chief Sitterfin's resignation note mentioned, quote, limited resources, lack of financial stability and budgeting for the police department, demands for the police department to support their own budget, lack of transparency, and extremely low numbers of quality applicants for the current vacancies. Probably will not read that in the job posting for a new Morrison police chief. There may not be one. Town trustee tells us tonight they're going to discuss whether to have the Jeffco Sheriff's Office take over permanently. Denver voters have their mail-in ballots by now, and you have that handy voter guide explaining the issues. So this is a good time to mention that the claims in the voter guide may not be true. Politics guy Marshall Zellinger's along, and Marshall, we learn something new every day.
Did not know this. I rely on the Blue Books for simplified breakdowns of ballot issues. The state Blue Book, which is actually the color blue, covers the 3 statewide ballot issues we all have to vote on. This is written by nonpartisan staff and vetted in a way by Democrats and Republicans at the Capitol. Denver's version of the Blue Book has the 13 ballot issues on the city ballot, and the for and against statements in here may not be true.
Ballot Measure 2C is one of 5 bond questions facing Denver voters. A yes vote means you're okay with the city borrowing money to pay back later with interest for city transportation needs. A no vote means you don't want the city borrowing the money. Denver's version of the Blue Book explains what this means financially for the city, and then it includes comments for and against.
I've always used it as at least a baseline, particularly on stuff like this.
What caught Jeff Helgerson's attention were the written comments against 2C. One of the areas 2C would pay for, bike lanes. The argument against 2C makes a claim about the lack of use of current bike lanes on South Broadway.
A recent study shows that 0.02% of the traveling public uses the lanes. When I kind of ran the numbers, that's about 140 people in the entire city that they're claiming use bike lanes, which seems obviously pretty low to me.
Jeff put in more effort than even I did after reading Denver's Blue Book. He emailed the city looking for the study that's referenced and found out the city did not have it because the statements are not vetted for truth.
Our job when it comes to this guide, we are the compilers of the information. We do not perform fiscal analysis. We do not fact check what are essentially people's opinions.
The comments for 2C are written by City Council, since Council put 2C on the ballot. The comments against can be provided by any registered Denver voter. The clerk can only summarize a comment to shorten it if it's longer than 500 words.
A pro or con statement can't have any profanity, indecent language, or moral language, anything considered offensive, libelous, or scandalous. We do not, under current law, have editorial over what gets submitted to us.
If you're going to write in and say, my comments are against or for something, and here's why, and it incorporates some sort of a numerical or study-based comment, you need to have an attachment field for your comment that says, here's my reference.
I found out who did write this against paragraph for 2C. I reached out to that voter, called her. I've yet to hear back from her, Kyle, so we're just going to stash it back in the mailbox for now and call that section good.
Oh, look at that. Marshall Zellinger in his handy mailbox. So quick question, Marshall. We know that when you break down the ballot issues for us here and you put them on 9news.com, that your reports do not have any indecent language or anything scandalous or libelous. But just checking here for the record, your reports on the voter issues, they do have to be true.
They have to be true, and I can't find the exact example in this, but if you go into at least the statewide Blue Book, there's the section that details, like in pages, what's actually going to become in state law, and I review that to make sure there's nothing hidden in there.
As a coworker of ours who did not intend to be on TV, was just on TV. Marshall, thank you. Mistakes happen. That is why we sometimes air corrections on this program when we make errors, and it's why the city of Denver just spent almost $64,000 correcting the record for voters. There was an error in Denver's Blue Book explanation on ballot issue 302. So 302 is the initiative we've talked about. It's backed by the developer who now owns the Park Hill Golf Course. It is competing with ballot issue 301. 301 would essentially protect that open space from development. An open space supporter said the financial explanation of the pro-development initiative didn't tell the full story. The city said to us that it was accurate, but said, well, we do clarification. Denver's finance department sent out a correction mailer at the cost of almost $64,000. A quick reminder on an annual election season question around here from Next viewers. You may receive 2 ballots if you own 2 pieces of property. That does not mean that you are illegally voting twice. Example, Next viewer from Boulder County also has a home in Grand County, got 2 ballots, showed them to us. Her Grand County ballot was simply a fire district question, so she was not double voting on statewide issues. The talk radio host who tried to catch COVID at a campaign event in Colorado may have had it before he arrived. Some thoughts on the danger he posed to the campaign he was trying to help. Tri-County Health, with its controversial mask mandates and such, it's about to be down to just 1 county. Another county's headed for the exit. And healthcare history is coming to Colorado.
I was on the verge, and I was in a very deep depression.
The difference between a medical procedure being cosmetic or covered, that could save lives. Next. Tri-County Health Department is going to be Uni-County Health before long. Douglas County, of course, skedaddled out of Tri-County to avoid mask mandates. And now Adams County says it's looking to leave. Today, Adams County commissioners put it on the agenda for a public hearing next week. They'd stay with Tri-County through the end of 2022. So poor Arapahoe County, last one standing in Tri-County Health, they put out a statement today saying they're sad. The exact quote was, "Saddened that our neighboring counties have chosen to end the productive 55-year partnership." Colorado's COVID hospitalizations are at their peak for 2021, and they are still rising daily. 1,042 patients at last check, vast majority unvaccinated, of course. That's an increase of 21 patients from yesterday. It has taken me 24 hours to wrap my mind around one of the wilder political stories we've seen. The conservative talk radio host Dennis Prager announcing that he had been trying to catch COVID at public events, hugging and shaking hands with as many people as possible. Within several days of coming to Colorado to campaign for Republican gubernatorial frontrunner Heidi Ganahl, Prager announced that he has developed symptoms and tested positive for COVID. Prager did not notify the Ganahl campaign when he tested positive. He waited 5 days and announced it on his radio show. Prager is also actively telling unvaccinated Americans to try and catch COVID to get natural immunity. He said it at the event in Colorado, and he says it on the radio. Prager knows that more than 700,000 Americans have died of COVID, and that not everyone who takes his advice will survive. If 100 unvaccinated Coloradans inside or outside that campaign event take Prager's advice and test positive for COVID, well, chances are only 1 or 2 of them will die. Heidi Ganahl is not an anti-vaxxer. She did give a platform to an anti-vaxxer as he tried to catch COVID from her crowd and urged her supporters to go catch COVID too. Ganahl has described her campaign as an uphill climb. One strategy would be to keep as many of her supporters alive as possible.
A little cooler today. Nice to finally feel and look a little bit more like fall. We have those dark skies sitting across downtown Denver. A couple of light rain showers pushing through the city and snow up in the mountains. A storm system just off to our north and to our west, bringing our neighboring states some nice wet weather too. The clouds streaming in. Couple of quick rain showers here around the city and into the suburbs. This system, it's going to be a fast mover. It rolls out by about midnight. Tonight, temperatures falling to the 20s and 30s in northeastern Colorado. Teens and 20s, though, up in the mountains. We'll fly throughout the future cast. Tomorrow morning, the sunshine is back. A few high-level clouds kind of drifting in out to the western slope, but that's going to be about it. Highs return to the low 60s here in the metro, 40s, 50s way up high, but this ridge of high pressure continues to build, and that means a big warm-up on the way. By the weekend, we are back in business with the 70s.
Colorado is about to make history, requiring some health insurance to cover care that used to be called cosmetic, when patients insisted it could be life or death. The Latino community has been telling all of us throughout the pandemic.
As a person of color, we understand and we see that in our own families, in our own communities, when we go to church, when we go to the grocery store.
There are hard numbers now about the disproportionate impact of COVID in Colorado. Next. Colorado's Latino communities faced more hardships during the pandemic. We've known that for a while in terms of COVID case numbers and deaths, and now we know the economic impact was worse as well. Coalition of community groups surveyed 1,000 Latinos in Colorado. They found 60% had their work hours or pay cut. 56% had difficulty paying their bills. 50% had trouble paying rent or mortgage. And 33% said they did not have enough food to eat. Survey was taken during the month of August, so this isn't a 2020 thing. These are recent issues. We asked the survey organizers how those numbers compare to the population as a whole.
When we see the data from other polls, and when we see some of those points, certainly Latinas and Latinos have been disproportionately impacted by COVID. We're seeing the struggle and some of the barriers are more prominent with our community than maybe some others. We're not the only community. Obviously, the African American community and some other communities of color are facing very similar challenges. But Latinas and Latinos, the largest minority group in the state of Colorado, clearly has had a disproportionate impact.
Alex Sanchez there with Voces Unidas de la Montaña says that the pandemic's been especially tough on Latinas and Latinos in the service industry in Colorado's mountain communities. He said some in low-wage jobs don't have health insurance. And he said resort town restaurants and bars closing down left people unable to pay for basic needs like groceries. Sanchez told us they've put out this survey now, hoping to get the attention of state leaders to show that Colorado's Latino population is still dealing with disproportionate economic impacts from the pandemic. Colorado's going to make history in 2023, requiring many private health insurance companies to cover specific gender-affirming care for transgender patients. It's the first time the federal government has ever approved a state's requirement for that care in individual and small group health plans. The decision means that specific treatments like hormone therapy, top surgery, and facial feminization must be covered if a doctor deems the procedure medically necessary. There may be a public perception these surgeries are cosmetic, but take the case of Blair Sagan, who told us that Blair paid $10,000 out of pocket to get top surgery. It's a procedure to remove breast tissue and reshape the chest. At the time, Blair was depressed and on the verge of contemplating suicide, and said the surgery was life-changing.
I think it's pretty amazing that this is now imposed upon private insurers because you know how insurers want to save their money and like make the most money possible when it's a, for-profit industry. So a lot of these types of surgeries people don't want to cover them.
Colorado Medicaid does currently cover gender-affirming care. It's not a federal requirement for states' Medicaid programs to do that. Art is what you make of it, even if it's dead. This family-friendly show, so you'll enjoy the most Colorado thing we saw today, plus your feedback next. The most Colorado thing we saw today is turning a neighborhood nuisance into a work of art. That is the sound of art being made. Karen sent us photos and videos of the so-called Chainsaw Mama's latest work. Chainsaw Mama turns dead trees into art pieces, and today was wrapping up a project on a tree that fell near the Holly Street Bridge a few years ago. It was just sitting there near Eastman and Holly by the Highline Canal, and now it's a beautiful woodland scene. If you see something that says Colorado to you, send it our way. Email photos or videos to next@9news.com or use the hashtag HeyNext on Twitter. Amy Jo writes in to ask, how long was talk radio host Dennis Prager, how long did he have COVID before this became public knowledge? So he said that he was symptomatic last Wednesday and took a test, came back positive. He acknowledged he didn't feel well before that. He was in Colorado the previous Sunday. According to the WHO, most folks are symptomatic 5 to 6 days after they contract COVID, so it's a toss-up as to whether he came to the event to catch COVID with it already. Cynthia Stone says you are extremely biased in reporting bike and car crashes. It's not always the driver's fault. It is absolutely not always the driver's fault, but one of them's much more likely to die, so we will talk about that. See you next time.